This is the map the Pentagon hoped would stay in the shadows. 1,000 high-value targets. Every ballistic missile silo, every drone manufacturing plant, and every underground command center across the Middle East, marked with a digital X. At the center of this storm sits the USS Gerald Ford, a 100,000-ton titan of steel, representing the pinnacle of American military projection. But as this $13 billion supercarrier crosses into the region, a chilling reality is setting in among the top brass in Washington. While the administration's rhetoric reaches a fever pitch, promising traumatic consequences for any provocation, the actions on the ground tell a completely different story. Why is the United States quietly dismantling its presence at the strategic Al-Tanf base in Syria at the exact same moment it's surging naval power into the sea? Why are high-level envoys whispering in the halls of Muscat, Oman, while the carrier's decks are buzzing with F-35s? Today we are going deep. We are peeling back the layers of this strategic paradox to reveal why the world's most advanced warship might actually be walking into the most sophisticated trap in modern history. We are witnessing the birth of the regional shield, and it's changing the rules of war forever. To understand why the Gerald Ford is in trouble, you first have to understand what it is. This isn't just a ship, it's a floating city, powered by two A-1B nuclear reactors that could provide electricity to a medium-sized city for 20 years. It features the revolutionary Electromagnetic Aircraft Launch System, or EMALS, allowing it to launch jets faster and more efficiently than any carrier in history. It carries more than 75 aircraft, including the most advanced stealth fighters on the planet. On paper, the Ford is invincible. It's the ultimate big stick. But in the year 2026, the big stick has a massive target painted on it. According to recent intelligence leaks, the Ford is already showing signs of operational fatigue. After its grueling deployment in the Caribbean during Operation Southern Spear, the crew is exhausted, and the ship's complex systems are overdue for critical maintenance. But mechanical failure isn't the primary threat. The real nightmare for the U.S. Navy is a weapon that has turned the Ford's $13 billion price tag into a liability, the Fata-2. We are talking about hypersonic technology. Iran's Fata-2 isn't just a missile. It's a game-changer that travels at speeds exceeding Mach 15. At that velocity, physics starts to work against the defender. The air around the missile turns into plasma, making it nearly invisible to traditional radar. The Ford's Aegis defense system, the gold standard of naval protection, was designed to intercept subsonic and supersonic threats. But against a hypersonic glide vehicle that can maneuver in mid-flight, the Aegis doesn't see a missile, it sees a ghost. By the time the computers can calculate an intercept point, the impact has already occurred. This technological leap has created a deterrence gap that Washington is desperate to hide. Every day the Ford sits in the Gulf. It is a $13 billion gamble against a $100,000 missile. The math of war has shifted, and the house is no longer winning. But the Fata-2 is only one piece of the puzzle. The true Ford trap is something much larger, the regional shield. For decades, the U.S. operated in the Middle East by exploiting the divisions between nations. They relied on isolated ground bases like Al-Tanf to control the chessboard. But in 2026, the board has been flipped. A unified, integrated air defense network has emerged, stretching from the Mediterranean to the Arabian Sea. This shield isn't just about hardware. It's about data sharing and sovereign independence. When American troops began pulling out of Al-Tanf, the mainstream media called it a repositioning. But military analysts know better. Al-Tanf was an outpost that became an island, surrounded by a landscape that is no longer hospitable to permanent Western footprints. The U.S. is withdrawing because the regional shield has made ground occupation a suicide mission. This brings us to the secret corridors of Oman. While the Ford makes its loud, public entrance, the real work is being done in silence. Jared Kushner and the administration's top negotiators aren't in Muscat to talk about small-scale peace deals. They are there because the regional shield has forced them to the table. They are negotiating the terms of an exit that allows Washington to save face while acknowledging the new reality. The 1,000 target map you've been hearing about? It's a classic madman theory move. It's a psychological operation designed to project strength during a period of extreme vulnerability. It's a message to the world that says, we can still destroy everything, even as they realize they can no longer control anything. The Ford is the ultimate prop in this global theater. It's a diplomatic shield made of steel, intended to buy time for a signature on a piece of paper in Muscat that ends the era of the petrodollar war. We also have to look at the economic reality back home. The United States in 2026 is facing a domestic crisis of confidence, record inflation, a fractured political landscape, and a public that is increasingly weary of forever wars. The cost of keeping a carrier strike group on station is millions of dollars per day. In contrast, the cost of the regional shields, asymmetric drones, is pennies on the dollar. This is economic attrition. The U.S. Navy is trying to maintain a 20th century empire with 21st century costs, and the numbers simply don't add up. Every F-35 that takes off from the Ford's deck represents a cost that the American taxpayer can no longer sustain, especially when a swarm of $20,000 drones can theoretically disable a multi-billion-dollar asset. So what is the payoff? What happens when the smoke clears? We are witnessing the slow, painful collapse of the carrier doctrine. For 80 years, since the end of World War II, the aircraft carrier was the symbol of global order. If there was a problem anywhere in the world, the first question was, where is the nearest carrier? But today, that question has changed too. Is the carrier safe? The USS Gerald Ford is likely the last of its kind, a dinosaur in an age of meteors. Its presence in the Gulf isn't a sign of a new war beginning, but a sign of an old era ending. The regional shield has proven that regional actors can now enforce their own no-fly zones and no-sail zones without permission from the Pentagon. The question isn't whether the Ford can hit its 1,000 targets. With its massive arsenal, it certainly could cause unimaginable damage. The real question is, can the United States survive the geopolitical and economic earthquake that would follow? If the Ford fires a single shot, the regional shield closes the straits, the global energy market collapses, and the U.S. finds itself isolated in a world that has moved on. The Ford is a giant, yes, but it's a giant standing in a minefield, surrounded by a fog of diplomacy and hypersonic threats. As we watch the headlines over the coming weeks, keep your eyes on Oman, not just the carrier deck. The future of the Middle East and the future of American power is being written in the fine print of a treaty, not in the fire of a missile launch. The giant in the Gulf is waiting, but the world is no longer afraid. What do you think? Is the USS Gerald Ford a masterclass in deterrence? Or is it the most expensive sitting duck in history? The map is out there, the targets are set, but the clock is ticking on a game that Washington might have already lost. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and stay tuned, because this map, and the world it represents, is changing faster than the sensors can track.